When it flooded in 2007, the water was up to where we are now, and it was just like a lake. We had people on, surfboards and stuff going through.
It's the grandchildren and the next generation that's going to pay, isn't it? At the end of the day, for us not bothering.
When we harvest the rain in rainbows, we can put it back into the world and not flood the world.
So everything that happens, even in small steps, is wonderful.
There's been a big shift over the last 30 years from an approach that's tried to manage water by taking it away as fast as possible to one that says, well, if you do that, you just take it from one place and then it becomes a problem in another place. So instead of that, the idea is, well, let's try to hold water where it falls in order to both let it infiltrate into the ground, so we deal with drought, but also so it doesn't all arrive at once in the river or somewhere else and cause a flood, and also so it doesn't pick up lots of pollution. So holding the water back is seen as a solution to multiple water issues.
Hull has some very unique qualities with respects to managing water generally. So it's a clay bowl. All the water that comes into Hull has to be pumped out. It's got a very shallow substrate, which means there's not a lot of sponge for the water to be soaked up or held in. It can be flooded from almost every which way you want to think of. You've got the rivers, you've got the estuary, and you've got the wolds, so you've got the water that would run down from the hills as well. Hull is very vulnerable to flooding. In fact, it's the second city most at risk next to London in the UK.
The Magic Project is a project which is trying to look at how can we work together to adapt to climate change using the case study of Hull and East Riding. We decided we wanted to do something which was trying to hold the water back by working with people. Like in the past, when it's been getting the water away, it's all been the authorities. And the shift, if we're going to hold it back, is lots and lots of different people have land and buildings and things. So there's a lot of different places we can hold the water back. And we wanted to think about that and try to make it happen. Initially, we were going to focus on 2 neighbourhoods. And we were going to talk to people in the neighbourhood about where in the neighbourhood can we hold water back, where do you think it would be useful, and then work with them to design and build something. We got hit by COVID, so basically we weren't able to talk to people, and we realised that we were just cutting it too fine to do all of those processes.
What we ended up doing was locating buildings or sites that had real prominence and importance for an area. They basically had good footfall. They were used by the public. And then concentrating on the community of users of that building rather than trying to engage the entire area. The approach is to listen and be very responsive to the needs of the people or the wishes, the aspirations of the people that you're talking to. So the important thing was to listen and then tailor our engagement processes specifically to what we were being told and directed to do.
Sustainable is a worker co-op which installs small-scale retrofit sustainable drainage systems, and it came about as a result of TimeBank's involvement in the Magic Project.
Well, I guess the TimeBank, what we're all about is it's making connections. We're weavers of connections between people. What we're about is finding out all the sort of assets that people have and skills and spaces and everything and sharing that. So what we do have is connections to hundreds of people across the city, many organisations. This is something that we wanted to do as part of the project. It was always there that wouldn't it be amazing if through the learning of the Magic Project that we could actually create some sort of enterprise that is ethical, that enables circular economies, reusing materials and everything, all of those things that we need to take account of when we're talking about climate and all of those things to take the project forward.
You need a means for somebody to buy in, like, could I just pay a little bit of money and can somebody fix me a rain tank? And you need businesses to be able to do that, you need individuals to be able to do that, and ideally, because there's a fair number of individuals who haven't got the resources to go and pay somebody, you need some sort of subsidy for those who are not quite so well off to get that done for them. So sustainable was our route, at least to the first two of those, and potentially, if funding comes by, to the third. But also, it was seen as a way of bringing some jobs to Hull and of turning the issue of flood risk management into a virtue. Without sustainable, the project could not have achieved its really central goal of making a practical difference within communities.
The main purpose of the company is to achieve improvement in surface water management. So the sustainable drainage systems that are installed are part of like a long-term vision for the city to manage surface water.
This area of Hull flooded really badly. I don't think there was many houses that were affected. And the church got involved with trying to help people. And then it was through that involvement that I first had contact with Magic to see how the floods had affected us and how we helped people through them. If it rains really heavy, all these years later, people still start to think, is it going to flood? I think we need to do something to prevent rather than wait for it to flood again. And it helps people to relax, to start not being so anxious, because anxiety is a terrible thing. And if we can alleviate that a little bit, then it's doing some good.
Priory Baptist Church in Derringham was the first site where the installation took place. So the idea was to install rainwater harvesting concealed within planters to catch rain in heavy rainfall events to reduce the amount of rain entering the sewers and therefore reduce the surface water flood risk.
The great thing about Derringham was we'd already built some lovely relationships. Once we decided that it was going to be the church that we put the rain tanks on and installed them there, it was a no-brainer to work with Tarina to do an event. It was actually a really magical day. It was lovely. And all of these activities were means by which we could have conversations.
The church were involved, so our church band played. The food was provided, and that was nice. Everybody enjoyed it.
So today we've had like a little opening party about the church's water and about flowers because of the nature at the church, and it's just amazing to be part of it.
I've been making bucket houses and been putting plants in fabric and been smashing it to make some art.
12 years ago, we was really badly flooded here. You know, the church went, our houses went, we was flooded in. You know, it's anything really to understand it a bit more and not to let it happen again.
Derringham got a hit in 2007, the floods. Absolutely devastated the area. And by the children getting involved in various activities today is to help them understand, because they're the future. We have to think of them and what their life is going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years' time.
I think it went well. Being the first installation, there were lots of opportunities to learn.
It was a really good day, so lots of people attended. There were people in the community that came that we haven't met before. So it was nice to get to talk to people and chat to them, and maybe people will start to think about putting rainbows in themselves at home, and in that they're helping their own anxieties.
Why does it matter to us? We're a local business, and I guess we just see the correlation between community and business, and what's good for community is good for business, and vice versa. We're a petrol filling station, that's the traditional phrase for it, but actually the convenience store almost becomes a community store. People are on first name terms, so yeah, it's a very engaging environment.
The garage was quite unique in the fact that there's a Subway on site, so people eating their sandwiches, there's a Costa machine in the garage, people sit and have coffee. So on this site there was already some seating area made out of scaffolding boards, and so when I went, my intention on that site, as well as putting in rainwater harvesting in a similar way to the first site, I didn't want to throw away all the materials that were there already. In terms of sustainability, it's better to just not throw things away than it is to buy something new. So there I basically deconstructed what was on site and then reconstructed it around the rainwater harvesting system.
A garage is not a place where you would expect to find some sort of installation, rain management type stuff, really. So in keeping with the area, in keeping with what people really liked about the area, we thought it'd be brilliant to have a mural that kind of like was beautiful, but also was saying something about rain management. And we thought it'd be great if it actually was able to incorporate some of the aspirations and wishes and desires of the local area.
They're all very aware of the flooding that happened down Chancellors Avenue and want to do something about it, but what can we do? It's trying not to send a message that is really hard and aggressive, like, we all need to make a change and we all need to stop this flooding and how we're going to do it, but it's trying to find little gentle ways of connecting with people. So I'd brought in designs from the mermaids of the avenues, which is really recognisable in that area. And then this reflection idea, because of the idea of water, you get this reflection and exploring those ideas.
Today we've got a tea party for lots of people in the local area who were involved in helping us develop the mural. The middle part has got lots of aspects that the shopkeepers put on. So you'll see on there's people's favourite dogs and a tiger for Hull City and an elephant because it's somebody's favourite thing, but also things that represent the shops. So there's a shoe last for the cobblers, so that local people have some ownership in the mural as well.
To make people a little bit more aware of it, little things that they can do at home, plant stuff up and save water when they can and use it at different times. It'll make a massive difference to the community. It'll mean that we can keep the community going non-stop, hopefully.
Well, this has been lovely, really, really lovely. And we understand what you're doing with the water situation, you know, what's going on in the world. We need to sort it out, don't we, really?
We see an opportunity for local populations and local communities to really play a part in the solution. So as you can see here, you've got a commercial business, but actually they're providing a really lovely community facility that's got really good sort of learning aspects to help people understand about how we can better manage our water. And it's going to help them if they're selling sandwiches. You know, there's always a reciprocal benefit. I think if they're selling sandwiches, they've got somewhere lovely to sit. So the more that we can replace our grey surfaces with green surfaces, we're kind of turning the city into a big sponge to soak up the water.
From the outset to where we are now, it feels like a good 2 and a bit years. If it had been a retail project that we were trying to do something, we'd have probably done it in 2 or 3 months. Squeezing it up a little bit might have been better. It feels like a lot of consultation. I guess it's a balancing act of trying to get opinions, but how long it takes. But it's something that's visible, tangible, people can see, and it's something to talk about. It's a very important sort of message that it's trying to give out, but in a very soft and subtle way by talking about gardens that are self-watering with rainwater. It is sort of delivering a more important, bigger message.
There's a strong community spirit, without a doubt. Orchard Park suffers from quite a lot of negative press. It is classed as an area of high deprivation. In terms of political wards, it's the most deprived ward in the city, and I think it falls within like the 20% most deprived wards in the country. Quite a lot of people were flooded in 2007 in Orchard Park. You know, it was so traumatic for some people that they really don't want to talk about it. And I just thought this would be a really fantastic sort of trailblazing thing. We can say, look at this wonderful project we're involved in on Orchard Park, and I saw it would fit into some of the other work I was doing about trying to promote the area and create a different image of the area. So working on a building that's in the centre of the estate that loads of people use, I just thought this seemed like too much of a good opportunity to not get involved in.
So on Orchard Park there is a nursery in the building, and I think one of the main priorities was to improve the aesthetics of the building, and as well to provide some seating for the people who use the food bank, which operates from the nursery. So we placed planters at each downpipe, and this design incorporates rainwater harvesting tanks, but when they overflow into planters.
A really successful engagement event that we ran there was a pizza and planting party. And we had some activities for the kids to do as well. And what happens is the kids start to getting interested, which means that the parents come along because that's really good, and then the parents start getting interested and involved as well, and then you end up with lots of conversations.
We wanted to incorporate a youth club round the corner, probably ages of about 8 to 15. They came and joined me for an evening after school for a few hours and spray painted, so they used spray paint for the first time. So you've got 4 panels around the building, and all of those are all their pieces of work. So each one of them would have been able to bring in a family member later on and gone, I did that bit, which I think is really lovely because they designed it as well as physically painted it. As you're painting, like all these things, it's walking and talking. It's a really lovely way of engaging, and just without having to sit opposite somebody. You know, you can start talking about water, you can start talking about what magic we're trying to connect with.
For magic, I think it's been a good learning curve for them. I think they haven't worked in an area of high social and economic deprivation and all the issues that come with that, such as vandalism and things having to be built really sturdy, otherwise they don't last. It's been a learning curve for all.
There were certain decisions within the design and construction that were made as a result of the warnings that we'd had about people potentially vandalising the installations. And so we'd been told, let's not use wood because wood is, can be burned, it's flammable. So we chose fire-resistant cladding.
You can't know until you try. The concrete tiles are a couple of mils wide, which in an area where you get kids hanging out and playing around, they're not going to last 2 minutes. Kid sat on it, tapped his foot and one panel went, so they went ping, 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 all the rest of them.
It was basically damaged quite badly. Luckily, in this instance, the Magic Project was happy to fund the repair of that. Even though there were problems and even though people have damaged the installation, that's just a small minority, and the wider community actually has a more positive outlook on what we've been doing.
I don't think we've reached as many people as we would have liked to have done, but I definitely think we've had that impact on some of the people we've worked with, particularly our families. I'd really like to build on it and keep it in people's consciousness, because it will link into the Living with Water partnership stuff that's due to happen. There'll be a lot of capital works in Orchard Park over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. I think we've made some progress without a doubt.
Bilton is a small village. It's a very caring, community-minded village, but the primary school doesn't just serve the village, it also serves the surrounding areas. We also have families that come from Hull, so we're a very mixed unit, and we do fully live up to the term community. We talk an awful lot with our children about them being our future and them being powerful policy change makers. But we have to educate them about that. And one of the assemblies that we had was talking about how they could just make small changes, but if they did it as a unit, the difference is quite significant. And I think the movement recently with young people really taking on these challenging environmental topics has empowered our children to realise that they are the makers of change.
Sarah was very interested. So we then visited, and it was an area where you could have a SUDS, a sustainable urban drainage system. So we talked about a pond and maybe an outdoor classroom.
I was really quite excited about this chance to be able to develop our grounds, but also educate our children at the same time.
The Magic team, in collaboration with Green Estate, decided to create an outdoor classroom next to a SUDS pond. And the outdoor classroom consisted of some seating that's made out of old tree logs and some wildflower planting and trees around it as well. So it allows children to be in that space while they learn not only about the SUDS pond, but about other elements of the natural world and things that are surrounding that area. And then hopefully in the future see that pond connected up to receive surface water runoff from the impermeable surfaces on the school site. And as well as reducing the quantity in the drains, it'll help to treat the water through it entering the pond system.
We discussed, well, how can we really engage the families through the kids and through the school.
What I wanted to do was use a local community theatre company to kind of educate our children that their voice can make a difference.
Our approach was to kind of find those key individuals, those people who had influence, who had already done the work. They were already trusted. They already had the ear of the community. Sarah is obviously an influence. So working with her and working with what she feels are the needs and wants of the school was the way that we were able to engage the families in that area. And then we were able to run an event, and we had activities and events. We had a brilliant thunderstorm and the kids performed for the parents.
It's a good initiative. It's setting an example, giving people something to talk about, something to think about, something maybe to follow in their own way if they could. The more we can conserve water, the better. So, yeah, it's good to take a lead, isn't it?
The fact that we've got this absolutely incredible resource, which I show any visitor that comes here to be able to see it, and they go, it's amazing. And it's also opened the door to work with other organisations as well, which maybe we wouldn't have had that opportunity to do so. But I think there's still quite a long way that we need to go to be able to say that the local community are fully aware of what role they can play in water management.
The community engagement in Cottingham began with kind of some workshops with the trustees and the volunteers, finding out what the trustees wanted for the building.
Cottingham is the biggest village in the country. It's in the East Riding of Yorkshire, just outside Hull, and there's a population of about 17,000 people. And the demographic is that we're all, fairly old and white. We had serious floods in 2007, but people seem to have forgotten already that we're in a floodplain. The world has to change and people's attitudes have to change. So I was very interested in a project in a village like Cottingham where attitudes are fairly entrenched about defence against flooding.
Cottingham Civic Hall was the first site where we decided to change the design from rainwater harvesting that had to be operated by a human in order to function to rain garden planters, which are planters that take the rain and sort of filter it through and slow it down. So on this site we installed 3 rain garden planters on the Civic Hall and 2 rainwater harvesting tanks. The idea being that the tanks provide water in periods of drought and the planters provide attenuation of rainfall in periods of heavy rain. The community were quite keen for us to be involved in improving their green spaces, so we also installed some rainwater harvesting tanks in the memorial garden. There was a lot of engagement from the community in Cottingham. Being in the centre of the town, there's a lot of people walking past, and asking about what we're doing. And I really enjoyed that process of explaining what we were doing and why we were doing it and what the project was.
The event was great. It was in the Civic Hall, so it was the only event we did that was inside. This was more a drop-in event. It lasted a bit longer than the other events that we ran. We had a parade, which was also a way of taking the event out and about. APAS Productions came along with costumes that people could put on, and also they made headdresses. And that positive environment, that positive atmosphere means that you can talk about rain management as something that is life-enhancing, that is something positive for all of us to do.
Flooding is a real risk, it's a real issue. And so I took an interest in protecting myself and my neighbours from flooding. And I also, at the same time, got interested in watering my garden from rainwater. My interest in rainwater harvesting and my interest in flooding were 2 completely different things, and I never connected them. Understanding how to manage rainwater, which can cause flooding, any knowledge is good knowledge.
The message might reach the people, but the action that they are supposed to take
is where the challenge is. It has to be funded. Who funds that is an issue. Do they fund it from their own pocket? Or is the government doing enough? Or is the local authority responsible for the flood? So who's responsible for the flooding is the main issue. As we are talking and interacting, we get to share those ideas. What small things can you do to manage flooding at a household level, or in your community, or in the city as a whole?
That was a really good day, and there was some good interaction with the public there. But there were other things that were supposed to happen, like a conference, that didn't happen. And I don't think that the project paid quite enough attention to publicity and involving members of the public post the work being done. I think it needs to be big projects to change people's attitudes. I don't think you can do it on the scale that we've got here.
Climate change is too big for us now to be doing it on a kind of piecemeal basis. Water goes everywhere, and so you need collective activity for it to be useful. I also really believe that if you can engender collective activity, kind of community activity, you're also enhancing people's well-being. People like being part of a community. They like being part of activities that others are doing. It provides a collective self-efficacy, and that's why we're working at a community level, because it's the one that makes sense, especially when it comes to things like climate change.
I think there will be a legacy in Hull of continuing works holding the water back by the authorities and by communities. I hope that the authorities will be able to fund some of that work in communities, and that there will be a virtuous circle of more and more people holding the water back and feeling more and more together through everybody taking efforts to do so and to look after their city.
It's been an interesting learning experience as we enter sort of an economic period where the cost of living is impacting people's disposable income. In particular, what I've learned is that the cost of these installations is higher than I'd ever anticipated, and really knowing whether people can afford to implement these on their own homes becomes a question. If we want to have the impact that we need moving forward to deal with our changing climate, then we need to make these types of things accessible to people on lower incomes.
I feel it's another opportunity in involving communities. It's like, how do we shift the power between, organisations like the Yorkshire Water and all of that have, that duty of care, but it's like, how can communities be part of something that they know the way water flows, for example? So this is the aspiration about this is how that knowledge can be shared and everyone to be part of a solution.